Attention soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and coasties. The holiday season is right around the corner. And some of you might be wondering, how am I going to afford to travel back home to visit my loved ones? Have no fear. Holidays for the Heroes is here. Last year, Holidays for the Heroes received donations from patriotic donors, and we were able to send 65 armed service members with a fully paid round-trip ticket and got them home for the holidays. Wait, but what's the catch, you might ask? Buckle your parachute strap. There is no catch and no hidden fees. Just contributions from good old-fashioned Americans who want to help heroes like you and show their appreciation for your service. If you're an active soldier and want to register, or an individual who wants to be a part of that growing group of patriotic donors, please go to www.holidaysfortheheroes.org. That's www.holidaysfortheheroes.org.
Coming to you from underneath a peach blossom, it's time for an episode of Be Awesome. Find positivity throughout your life and work, just like our mascot rooster, Steve the Jerk.
Hello, Be Awesome listeners. This is episode 92 of the Be Awesome podcast, and I am your host, Joshua Peach, and we've got another great Easton-focused podcast today. This is really an interesting one, and something I've shared on a number of podcasts about the pride that I have in our community on so many different aspects, but one of the aspects is just our rich history. And one of those pieces is the H.H. Richardson architect buildings that we have. I believe we have 7 or 8, and I'm going to let our guests go more into that. But this is a picture. What we're going to talk about today is, in particular, is the Oaks Ames Memorial Hall. And this picture is one of the rooms of Oaks Ames Memorial Hall, where I actually went to one of my high school semiformals to in the early 1990s. And today we're going to talk about Oaks Ames Memorial Hall. We're probably going to get into some things, all things Easton, because this gentleman has a ton of knowledge, extensive history. His last name also happens to be Ames. Mr. Frederick Ames, welcome to the Be Awesome podcast, my friend.
Oh, thank you, Josh. And I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to address your audience and tell them a little bit about the hall.
Well, let's get right into it, because the hall is absolutely, I'm going to be changing the pictures up for those of you that are watching the video. I'll be changing the pictures up, but tell us a little bit about the hall, how it came to be, when it was built. It wasn't built in the 1990s, that's for sure. So give the history and the backdrop of it, if you would.
Sure. The hall was built to commemorate a memory of Oaks Ames, and H.H. Richardson was the architect. Obviously he did the library and the gate lodge and the train station and others. And it was built in 1881, so it's been around some time. And it was paid for by two of his sons, Governor Oliver Ames, and the other one, Oaks Anger Ames. And he lived in that house behind the library, the Queeset house. That was his house. So, and then they sold it for $1. They sold it to the Oaks Ames Memorial Hall Association, of which I'm a member. And then the following, I've said this so many times, I have to go look at my notes. November 14th, 1881. In March of 1882 at Easton Town Meeting, the town voted to accept their privileges under the gift for basically financial responsibility for keeping up the hall. And to this day, we've got very generous support from the CPA. We also get funds from the Mass Historical Commission and Mass Cultural Council. And we also get some good private donations. We also get some money from foundations. The exterior of the building is sort of, all the bills are coming due at once, for all the, mortar, tiles, and windows. So it's really essential the help we get from the town. And otherwise we really couldn't do it. We can keep our operational costs
Mhm.
We can keep the heat on and all that stuff. But as far as the major exterior work, as you can see, behind you, it's a pretty daunting building.
Oh, it's unbelievably impressive when you drive down Main Street, heading towards it, and it's sitting on the hill, and it's just it is absolutely gorgeous. My math might be off, but it's celebrating its 140th anniversary this year, right? 1881. Am I off in my math?
No, you're correct. And
Uh,
I'm glad you brought that up because I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
yeah.
So that is a milestone.
That is a huge milestone. And H.H. Richardson, I know enough to be dangerous. I've got my Velvet book on H.H. Richardson, but share it with who I mean, he's still one of the world's most renowned architects in the world, right? He's got buildings in Albany, New York, and Boston, the church in Boston. How did it come about that Easton got so lucky to have so many H.H. Richardson? The statistic might be off. I cheerlead for our town a lot. We have
five.
more. We have
It's five.
Okay, we have 5. So I like to round up. You're lucky I didn't say 10, but I think we have like the most of his buildings in any certain one area. Is that
in any town for sure? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Well, my family got introduced to him, I think, by a mutual friend. I always get his name wrong. I think it was George Sargent, and he was very much involved in horticulture and the Arnold Arboretum and all that. And my family got very interested in horticulture too. And Fred, my great grandfather, he went to college with this guy Sprague, and he lived next door to Richardson in Brookline. And so I bet they probably met that way socially, because Richardson moved up here from New York after he got the Trinity Church job in Copley Square, and that made his bones architecturally. I mean, he became famous after that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's known all around the world. I mean, he is, I'd like to say Richardson's influence is like a mile wide and about an inch deep. It's too bad he's not remembered more. I'll tell you one story. When the library was planning to add on an addition, and there was some controversy about that, I was very honored. I got a note from Philip Johnson, who was probably the preeminent architect in the country at that time and founded the modernist movement. And he went to school in Cambridge. He went to Harvard Design School. So he'd been out to Northeastern. And he basically said, do not let them add on to that library. So as you can see, so it's pretty well known. So
yeah, well, library's gotten some national recognition, and if you go inside of it, it's not the largest library in the world, but it is one of the most beautiful, and it's one of the most, when you walk in, you can just imagine a different time in life and a different period. Like it takes you back to the 1800s or 1900s because of all of the original stonework on the outside and the beautiful attention to detail in the woodwork on the inside. It's just, I loved going there pre-COVID just to get away from everything and turn the ringer off. And I'm in there with my laptop, of course, not going through the Dewey Decimal file to find a book, but growing up and doing book reports there was just such an amazing, unbelievably lucky to have these buildings and these facilities in our town. So the Oaks Ames Memorial Hall, there's definitely there's a couple of different spaces, right? So there's a couple of floors. You guys provide different events. So walk us through the building and what types of events and what types of things are there, and just a general lay of the land, if you will.
Sure. Well, we have there are about 100, well, in a normal year, not a COVID year, we have about 150, somewhere between 150, 180 rentals a year. And most of it happens in the room downstairs on the first floor. And that has got a small speaker stage on it. That's the upstairs one.
Mm-hmm.
And the downstairs one is right below that. And that holds about 90 people and about 72 at tables for dinners, things like that. And next to that, there is a small room which people use for food service or set up a bar in there. And when you rent, you get the whole first floor. You have, of course, the bathrooms and the kitchen. And one thing we do, which makes us, I think, very, very competitive, is a lot of times when you rent from a function hall, you have to hire their caterer, or you have to have their bartender, or you pay the price, right, for the space, and you think you're all done. and then they just hit you with all these extra charges. We don't have any of that. You can do this, pick your own caterer. If you want to do it yourself, that's fine. We have a number of people do that. And we have a licensed kitchen. So if you want to cook your own food, and I know people from India, Haiti, and other countries, have rented the hall for that reason. They cannot find a caterer in the area that can really cook their traditional family foods. So that's another niche, we're trying to explore. And then upstairs, there's that big room behind you, and that's much bigger. That seats about 200, and you can get more than that if you set it up as an auditorium. And that's where we have the big weddings. And that's the room you had your dance in, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's really the crowning touch. And the acoustics are excellent. You can see those gray panels on the side between the windows that have the wreaths on them. And that was put there by Bose. They came and they measured the room for acoustics. They fine-tuned it, and musicians love it. And it's a great performance space too. On the third floor is what's behind me, and that was at one point the Masonic Temple. And that Richardson was a Mason, and this was an original space. And the ceiling was the last original. It's the only original surface left in the building. And we've had some people in to study it, to fix it up. At this point, we'd have to raise some serious money to get it fixed, but it's in the mix because it's really something. It's the last remaining surface, so we've got to save it. So put it on the list.
Are you allowed to, I know you're allowed to go up there, but am I allowed to go up there? I've never been up there. I've heard of it. I've heard stories and things, but I've never gotten past. I think there's there was a velvet rope across the stairway that prohibited you from going up the stairs, I think, or there's something that. There was also construction going on there for a long time, which we finally finished. So that was another reason for the rope. Yep. But we from time to time, and we'll advertise it. We'll lead small groups up there and take a look around. There's a lot of interest in it. Unfortunately, when the Masons moved out, they took all their regalia with them and everything. And they left, I think, in 1960. But it's really a great space. We don't have a fire escape up there, and that's why there's the limitations, a number of people that can be up there at any one time. But I think what we'd like to do is have it as a place for archives or exhibits, just sort of small scale events. It's a very nice room, and we get that ceiling fixed up. It'd be quite attractive. We didn't ask this in our preliminary talk, but just looking at put the picture back up, and the roof and the steepness of it and just everything. Was the building damaged in the polar vortex of 2015, or did did everything just slide off that steep roof for you?
It really did. Right above your head where the two roofs meet. That was the worst part of it. It sort of got jammed in that corner where the lower roof meets the tall roof. We had some problems. I don't know. You might have one photograph of ice damage in the loggia. So we took a beating. We also had something go wrong with the fire detection system, and there was a break in the wire, and it was an old building, and we had two technicians out. They had to spend a couple of days. They found the break, but we were out $5,000. So that was some damage. So but yeah, we've worked on the roof now. It doesn't have that problem. The snow won't get stuck up there.
What is the roof made out of?
That's terracotta tile.
What's the life? I don't know, terracotta.
I'd say it's about 100 years.
Wow. So has that roof's been replaced? Obviously, if it were 140 years.
That was replaced in 1980. Yeah.
Wow. So you got a few years left on it with a 100-year roof. That's good.
It's gonna outlive me, that's for sure. Yeah. You can see the library has it too, and I believe the train station has got slate. I think the Gate Lodge has slate too. No,
Yeah.
no, I think the Gate Lodge has the orange tile. Yeah, orange tile.
Yeah. Gate Lodge on Elm Street.
Yes,
Is that-
right
yeah.
across from the town offices. Yeah.
Yeah. That is an interesting, the Gate Lodge is one of the most interesting. I actually did a book report, I think, in the 5th grade on the Gate Lodge. I don't remember everything that I wrote about it, but the uniqueness of it, the fact that you drove through essentially you drive through the middle of the Gate Lodge, the middle of the house to get onto the property. What's the backstory on that one?
Well, it's a really interesting building.
Yeah.
And I always got the feeling that Fred and he and Richardson became good friends. And Olmsted and who was it, Tiffany and St. Gaudens, all these high-powered guys from that era, and basically just sort of turned them loose. Okay, what do you want to do? I don't know what he called him, HH or Henry or whatever, Mr. Richardson. And it's a very interesting building because of those boulders. And it's also interesting because you have very uniform windows and doors, which are very straight. And then you have the walls, which are these crazy stones. So to me, it's sort of a fascinating mix of sort of chaos and order. And the roof is incredible. What was it? Frank Lloyd Wright said, "What a roof!" So
Yeah.
it really is. I used to climb on that building when I was young. How can a 10-year-old kid resist those boulders? Just
Oh
to
yeah,
climb up.
scaling the side of the house.
Yeah, get halfway up and get stuck. The same thing. But
and who lived in the house, or was it truly a gatehouse to the property? That what was?
Well, the gardener lived on the first floor, and the second floor was called Bachelors Hall. And in those days, when the young men came out to go to dances or woo the young ladies, they couldn't sleep under the same roof, or they weren't supposed to. And so that's one of the purposes of the Gate Lodge. And Easton was a long way to come too, in those days. So you would be expected, if you're a special guest, to spend the night. And the other part of it, the other side away from the pond, that was a plant house to take in plants in the winter, tall plants. I never actually saw that happen, but there's one room in there that my grandfather built out of trees that were knocked down in the hurricane of 1938. So it's paneled with that part of it. So.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Is anybody living it now? This is a dumb question and off topic, but I'm just.
Oh yeah. No. Somebody lives in there now. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
That'd be a cool spot.
That would be a very cool place to live in.
Oh yeah. Well, back to Oaks Ames Memorial Hall. First of all, a lot of people don't know this, and I shared this with you, but Ames, Iowa is named after Oaks Ames, right? And it's the same Oaks Ames that this hall is named after, correct?
Yes,
there's a couple of Oaks.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Grinnell wanted a railroad to go through his town because it mattered a whole lot in those days if you had a railroad or not. I mean, so he asked his friend Oaks, if he wouldn't mind if he named the town after him. And I don't know who asked who what, but the railroad went through Mr. Grinnell's town, and so he graciously named it after, I guess after Oaks, really. Yeah.
And Ames, Iowa is where the Golden Spike was laid. I mean, I'm fairly certain that's where the Golden Spike was laid, isn't it?
No, it was a Promontory Point in
Promontory
Utah.
Point. That's right. Why did I say the Golden Spike? I probably made that mistake. I gave myself some more credit on where it was laid, and people believe me. That's when you're really believable.
Hey, you say it with confidence, right?
Yeah. No, it was the Ames brothers celebrate the Golden Spike, 1896. They celebrated it. It wasn't where it was laid in Ames, Iowa. So there's my false historical statement that isn't true. Fake news I caught. So it was in Utah.
Fake history. No, I went out to the 150th anniversary of it out in Utah.
Yeah.
And it was a great site. I mean, it's just the same as it was 150 years ago. I mean, there is nothing out there, not a house, not anything.
Wow.
it's high desert and the wind is blowing. It's a little chilly. Yeah, it was really it was quite a sight. And they did a reenactment, and it was fun. I enjoyed doing it.
Well, that's cool. I'm sorry that I got sidetracked, but I got caught up in the East, and I got you here. I got to get a couple of Eastern questions out that I know you've got the answer to. But back to Oaks Ames, one of the things that you said to me, which really stuck, and it's going to be the title of this podcast, which is Oaks Ames Hall is for you, meaning it's for community members, it's for groups, it's for weddings, it's for birthday parties, it's for all these different things, and I think that's probably often overlooked as available because well, first of all, it's such an impressive building that I think a lot of people probably think that it would be out of the realm of possibility for fees and costs, especially with function costs nowadays. But you and your team have really built this so that this hall is for the community and its use with obviously reasonable rental fees and things, but talk a little bit more about, the type of events, what it looks like, how did someone get a hold of you to book an event, and I guess the last one is, are you booking events, and are you currently having events with everything that's going on with COVID, and what type of events?
Well, business has slowed down, of course, and the people who have booked in advance, a year or so ago for weddings about COVID, by and large, most people have just put it off for a year. So we've been fortunate that way, but yeah, we have had to go into reserves, to keep up with the oil bills and everything like that. But we should be okay. I think we've got enough to get through this, as far as I understand the timeline now. It's still, the weddings are great. I mean, it's $2,000 to rent that room upstairs, and that's nothing. I mean, if you look around compared to other venues, it's nothing. We're very reasonably priced. The downstairs room, again, that's the whole first floor, which is handicapped accessible. That's just $650. And another thing that's really become quite popular now with COVID is the loggia, which is the name of that, what you call that space in front where the arches are, that sort of that covered space. People having dinners out there, cocktail parties, very, very pleasant out there in the warm weather, of course. And that's another feature. And people use it when they rent downstairs. It's a good place for people to go out and have a drink, just take a look at the view, admire the village. So that's our bread and butter right there.
Can they rent just the loggia?
No. You can't rent the loggia by itself because you'll want to use the bathrooms and the kitchen. So we
makes sense.
We tack it on to the downstairs. But yeah. Where was I? Sorry, I was right in the middle of my spiel.
Sorry, the rentals, the loggia.
Oh yeah. No, the loggia is great, and I know what I wanted to get onto. We are very much involved with the Shoveltown Cultural District. And we are the performance and event center for the cultural district. And a cultural district is a Massachusetts state program. It's a downtown redevelopment program, which gives the hall access to certain funds. And its main purpose is to fund theater, music performances, things that'll draw people to the downtown, and then hopefully go to Farmer's Daughter for lunch or dinner afterwards, just to promote the businesses that sort of got hit hard by the internet and by the malls, so bring that back. And I want to acknowledge there's Carolyn Cole, who is the head of it now, of the Shoveltown district, and in a sense she really her creation. I mean, she did most of the work, and it's such a great idea. We offered to be the performance center, and we're just a natural fit with those acoustics and the stages. And who else has been there? We recently had Jack and Jenny did an acoustic performance, which I think was live streamed on ECAT. And we also, I don't know if you know Jack Colombo, but he is Southeast School of Music. He has some music summer camps there. He's also put on several performances. And back in my early days at the hall in the late 90s, early 2000s, we had a music series. And that would be from September through November, every Sunday, one Sunday a month. And we had a tremendous variety of different types of music. We had klezmer, we had flamenco, we had jazz, we had big band with a girl singer. We had Tom Rush, John Sebastian, which some of your older listeners will know. But these guys were national acts. Brass quintet, string quartets. And our first performance was an opera singer. And I was in charge of the music system for his concert, and he was singing, and the piano music was on the tape. And some reason the tape skipped or it stopped, and I couldn't get it to start again. But this guy was so great; he really didn't lose a note, and he walked over while he was singing, and he sat down to the piano that was there and just picked up the music, and that was great. The music series was a lot of fun. We really didn't make any money on it, but people loved it. So I hope we can get back to doing more of that stuff. So again, we really want to put in a plug for music. People with musicians want to use the hall. We are very, very reasonably priced for that because we want to promote music at the hall. So if they need it for rehearsal space, we're working preliminary stages with Stonehill College and their theater department. We want to work on the stage upstairs as a good performance stage. So we really are set up for cultural performances, and that's the other side of what we do besides the social rentals. Also, we had in the Loja, we had great gourmet dinners. Rosemary Fresh is Meredith Bonney's company.
Mm-hmm.
And they put on a couple of incredible meals, and it was served out in the Loja on a nice evening. And it was really about as good as it gets, I thought. It was really nice. They did a great job. And the Grange will have their dinners out there, their monthly meetings in the warm weather. They'll put one big long table down the middle, like a farmer's table.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very nice, very, very convivial. It's the hall has a lot of character, and people like that.
Yeah.
And certainly for a wedding, you can't get anything that, despite being so imposing, really is a romantic building. And so we're very popular that way. But again, the issue is to get the word out, like what we're doing now. And again, I'm very appreciative of that we are reasonably priced. We are very flexible.
Mm-hmm.
And why not? It's too bad that people jump to a conclusion. But I can see why they might. Just looking at it, thinking this is something would be too expensive. But in fact, we're just the opposite. We're here for the community. We're to encourage use of the building. And how you would get in touch would be on the website, which is www.oaksameshall, all one word. And Oaks is spelled Oakes. So oaksameshall.org. And you will be put in touch with Joan Lundgren, who is our rental agent. And the hall's phone number, which will get you to the answering machine, is 508-238-9995. So if you want to leave a message there, Joan is very good. She's very good at getting back to you. She'll be there for the day of your event, answer any questions, help out. So things run very smoothly. That's and also there's the Italian garden behind. I know you mentioned you have an interest in Quissit House. Yep. And what we encourage people to do is that's not part of the hall, but it is run by the library. So we tell them if they, why not be married in the garden and then have your reception at the hall? So we tell them to go, contact the library because they're the ones that manage the space. And it's just a great combination. Yeah, it's to be married in the garden and then walk to your reception at the hall. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is one of the most beautiful. Before I go to the garden and the Quissit House, Tom Rush turned 80 yesterday, and he was interviewed, and he said his career was 99% magic. So I'm guessing that part of his magic was being able to perform in Oaks Ames Memorial Hall. So that's a little little factoid that I just did a quick Google search on. Amazingly, out of all those names, he was the one that I searched and found that his 80th birthday was yesterday, and he survived Corona. He was actually one of the first coronavirus. He got it. Looks like in April of last year. So I'm gonna listen to some of his music. But the garden is, and I'd love to learn more. I want to touch a little bit on the garden, but you're on your space again. And you don't need to be an Easton resident to use the space. You can be someone from mostly. I'm guessing a lot of your weddings are people like me that grew up in the town, that have passion for the town, that love the town, and downtown. When you talk about the shovel shop, what was the group that's working on the downtown area, the shovel shop or Shoveltown?
Oh, Shoveltown Cultural District.
Shoveltown Cultural District. You and I talked about this yesterday. I think downtown looks the best it's ever been.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
in the late 80s, early 90s, if there were tumbleweeds in New England, they were running down Main Street, and now it is vibrant. It is full of it's just full of activity and excitement, and it's bright. And Doug King and Mr. Howe and others that have developed those buildings along Main Street, and the town putting up the lights, and Lee Avery Williams putting the clock with the shovels built into it. I mean, just incredible detail that you could have an event at Oaks Ames Memorial Hall, and you could walk in any direction USA from the entrance, and you'd have a very nice walk. You could go to the Ames estate. You could walk through the old Shoveltown buildings where there are now apartments. That's very nice. You get the library, the Queesit House, the garden. I mean, just walk down Main Street. It's just such a cool place. The churches that are just absolutely beautiful. So there's no lack of sightseeing in a small town area, but the garden is where the podcast was created. The Be Awesome podcast was created in the Queesit House and the garden. The town and the town library and an Easton resident that is absolutely passionate and has been doing podcasts before podcasts. Bert Lewis, right? It's,
sure, I remember
Bert Lewis. So yep. Bert Lewis offered to do free podcast lessons. And one Saturday morning, I went to the Queesit House and I took a podcast lesson. And I said, I have no idea what I'm doing and I can never do this. And I walked out to the garden right next door behind the library and next to Oaks Ames Memorial Hall. And I sat there and I took a picture and I put a post on social media that said, this is the beginning of something. I think this is the beginning of something awesome. It was before Be Awesome. I think it was April of 2018. And I put together a very loose framework of what my podcast wanted it to look like. And it wasn't released. I didn't do my first podcast episode for 3 months later, but forever I will go down in history as my podcast lesson in the Queesit House and reflecting on how ridiculous an idea that was in the garden. The Queesit House isn't part of Oaks Ames. It's part of the library, but that's a story in itself that I think is worth sharing, which literally a river runs through it, right?
That's right.
What's the backstory on that place?
Well, it's interesting. When my brother owned it, I remember we were there one Christmas, and I was down in the basement, and there was this, I don't know what you'd call it, sort of this rectangular opening in the cement floor, about 3 by 4 feet, and there was a pipe on one side, a pipe on the other, and there was water flowing through it, which was draining down from up the hill, and there was a frog in there, obviously hibernating, so very, very natural. But that was Oaks Andrew's house, and it went through a number of different owners, and then the library got it, and the library's done a fantastic job, with the garden, with the house. I mean, it's just remarkable, how they've improved everything, and as a next door neighbor, we benefit from that. And as you said, you can, it's such an amazing collection we have here. You can, there's the old yellow brick high school, there's the rockery, there's the hall, there's the library, there's the shovel works, there's Mrs. Parker's old house, the Victorian house, there's Unity Church. And then there's the graveyard. I mean, it's uninterrupted 19th century. There's nothing's been inserted, nothing's been added onto. I think it's remarkable. And the thing that I'm interested in is how do we get more people out here to see it? Mm-hmm. I was showing somebody around who took some photographs. In fact, he's a great grandson of H.H. Richardson.
Mhm.
And he said, I've always wanted to come out to Northeastern. And I was like, well, yeah, I think you would. He's got 5 houses out here. So I didn't say that to his face, but anyway, so it's very interesting when people get out here and they're rightfully impressed about it. And I think we should, we as a town should look into how can we promote this more, because I think we've got it. We've got all the assets here. We just got to market them, put it together. To me, that would be, and also that's a great way to preserve them. If you have this attraction and people come and they know about it, that really ensures their future. I think that's a good way to tie it up. And the Shovel Works was really an amazing cooperative effort, between the private group I was involved with, and then, the town, and back and forth. And we put together a plan, which pretty much Howard Cohen used for his development. And what happened is we had all the preliminary work done, the Turner brothers already got the permits for the water, but anyway, so all the planning and stuff we had looked into. So Howard Cohen could basically, in very short notice, just walk right into that plan. Mm-hmm. So the town was super in supporting it with CPA funds, other things. I mean, it was a very complex effort, and I'm glad that private sector played a small role in it. Mm-hmm. And the payoff is huge. And part of that was when you're talking about downtown. Part of that was from the sewage treatment plant that came with the Shovel Works development. Mm-hmm. And that allowed the farmer's daughter to expand, and other businesses. And, when the farmer's daughter, that was great. That's really started to change people's minds about how they looked at downtown, Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember O'Connor's, the cigar store from the 50s, and everything in between.
I go back as far as, I think it was Charlie's. I don't remember.
I remember Charlie's. Yeah, Charlie's wasn't bad. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was definitely it wasn't vibrant. It was good food, but it was definitely it was a tired building.
It had its charm.
It had its character and charm. Yeah, it's funny when you mentioned the graveyard. And I bet there's a lot of people that are chuckling and going, "Oh yeah, graveyard, that's great." But that is really a fascinating graveyard to walk through. And if I have the name wrong, and if you know it, then I think it's the Knowles family. I think it's the Knowles family that's buried back there, and I'm probably wrong, but their tombstone is a tree, and then
I know what you mean. Yeah, exactly.
And then there's broken pieces of the tree with the different family members that are buried around the tree. It's like one of the coolest. I mean, if there's a cool way to be buried, and that's a family, it's the logs of the tree are all the family members of the tombstones. If I remember correctly, that was one of the sticking points. I hadn't been there in years.
That's right. I'd forgotten about that. And I remember the tree trunk was limbed. You could see where the branches were cut, and then you saw the little logs on the ground. So they were cut off the trunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is a great cemetery. That, in fact, I'm on the board of that, and we've recently looked into the landscape architect that did it, and he's quite well known. Mm-hmm. And we've got a St. Gaudens sculpture out there, and there's just some beautiful graves, and so that's a real asset. And the church, my God, those stained glass windows in the church, they're incredible.
Yeah.
I wish that could be more accessible, maybe a Saturday tour,
mm-hmm.
The church, the library, the hall, whatever, just put like a half day together, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, lunch in between here. It's a nice half day trip from Boston, just go out to Northeastern for half a day. So,
yeah. And there's still some great historians in town that could do tours. My sharing all of what I know comes from like 1992, Mrs. Varela walking us around. Well, Mr. Hill in the old high school, which was the middle school, was my 6th grade teacher. He gave me the first tour, our class, the first tour, way back when. And then Mrs. Varela, who was an incredible historian in town, she walked us around one day, and we actually had books, Easton history books. Because she was so proud of the town and shared so much with us. But there are still quite a few historians, and the historical committee for the town, which is out of the train station, is just a wealth of knowledge and amazing. When we talk about the influence between the manufacturing of shovels from your family, and then the shoe history in next door Brockton. And a lot of people don't know that Easton actually manufactured a car, the Morse automobile, which there's very few of today. So there's and the chocolate chip cookie. The creator of the chocolate chip cookie, Whitman might take credit, but she was an Eastoner. So there's a lot of different
That's
things.
Pretty cool.
There's
pretty cool.
There's a lot of cool in Easton, and never mind our parks, sheep pasture and borderland and everything else. I always tell people how spoiled and how fortunate I am to be in the community that I am. My family came here from Madeira in 1966, and they migrated to Brockton.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate to be able to come to Easton and call this home for a better part of all my life. So absolutely, I think a tour would be great post-COVID, of course, because we can't do all this close proximity stuff. But
no, and I just want to jump in. Hazel Varela, Mrs. Varela, is I didn't have her as a teacher, so I call her Hazel. But she's still very active. And Frank Menino at the Historical Society, he's done an incredible job with the resources there, the photographs, and of course Ed Hands,
Yes.
who's sort of the dean of all
Yep.
this. And that's the other element where we are so lucky to have is these people that just know the history and can pass it on.
Yeah.
And they are essential, and we are very fortunate to have them.
Well, here's a Frank Menino story before we kind of wind things out. Last year, I did the whole. I didn't do a lot for Be Awesome in my speaking career and public speaking. I traveled the country, but I did very little locally. And the Easton Chamber of Commerce asked me to speak at their business appreciation dinner last January. And I reached out to the Easton Historical Society because my grandfather, who was an immigrant, worked at Brockton Tool, which is next to Hennessy Liquors, the big old brick building, actually across the street from where the Morse automobiles were made on Morse's Pond.
Right.
And so I sent an email to the Easton Historical Society, and I said, my grandfather worked at Brockton Tool until I think it was when they closed in the 80s sometime. And Frank Menino responded and said, who's your grandfather? And I said, Manuel Pedro. And he said, I worked with him for I can't remember how many years, but the majority of his career, he worked there. And so I went down and spoke with Frank for over an hour. He gave me over an hour of his time, and he shared so much about my grandfather, a lot of it that I knew, but some of it that I didn't know. But he's so passionate and knowledgeable for the town. And it's people like that keep a lot of this stuff alive, because I walk into these buildings. Maybe I'm strange, but I love walking into our older buildings and just taking a step back in time. It's almost like the Titanic movie when you're envisioning what it was like in the ballroom when they were dancing. You kind of go into these spaces and you just take a breath in and you take a step back in time, and you're like, what was it like in 1882 to walk into this space and not have your phone and not have Wi-Fi and not be doing all this stuff? But it's really, really cool. And the preservation and the efforts that you and others in town have done is nothing short of extraordinary. So thank you for your commitment to doing this.
Yeah, and there are many of us out there. I mean, I've done my bit. That's how I look at it. I've done my bit. So
yeah. Well, I appreciate it. And in Oaks Ames Memorial Hall, do you guys do any fundraising? I know that a lot of this effort, the upkeep and the management and everything, a lot of that primarily comes from the rental money. Are there any fundraisers or anything that you guys do?
We have the Friends group, Friends of the Oaks Ames Hall.
Okay.
And there's information on that on the webpage. And that is a great organization to join. And we're going to have some more GoFundMe. We're going to have we get more active in the fundraising once everybody gets things squared away.
Mm-hmm.
It'll probably be the fall, I think. So yeah, most definitely. And again, just a plug for CPA, and they've been very helpful to us. So we benefit from that.
Yeah. Anyone that contributes, helps, gives time, gives money, or anything to keep some of these beautiful spaces intact and going, and hopefully keep that third floor in its original state, or as close to its original state, is pretty okay in my book. So I think we covered all the bases, my friend. This has been fantastic. We've been able to determine some things that I've said are fact. We found one thing that is definitely not, but people believed it. So I'm going to continue on with it and just call it Ames, Utah. That was interesting mistake on my part. But most importantly, we're going to let the world know that there's an amazing space, Oaks Ames Memorial Hall, that's for them, and to reach out to you and make sure that hopefully we get a couple more people get married and have birthday parties or just get together. And I think that when this stuff clears, I think you guys are going to be backlogged with events. You'll probably be booked every day because everybody's going to want to get out and do things. So get ready for the tidal wave.
So make your reservations now, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And again, I just want to thank you again for giving me the opportunity to reach out to so many different people about the hall. I mean, this is very helpful. That's a big deal. So thank you.
No, it's my honor, my friend. And with that, you just made a point. I just want to make sure: are you taking reservations for bookings, and when do you start? Like, what's the start date that people can start to look to book for events with you?
Well, I mean, as far as dates go, I think to be reasonable, the date of the event, you'd probably want to do the fall or something like that. But certainly you can call now and book. Just set it that way. And we have had sometimes it's sort of a rolling thing with COVID. So some people have moved a month or two along, and we are very amenable to that.
Good.
So yeah.
Well, much luck. I look forward to talking to you again in the future. This is great that I got to finally meet you virtually in person. A lot of fun and a lot of learning. And if by chance I call you from the police station because I got arrested scaling the side of the gatehouse on Elm Street, I'm following in your footsteps, looking for the bachelor space after an event or a distinguished guest. So no, appreciate you. Thanks for coming on here, and we'll hope to have you on again some other time and we can talk all things Easton.
Well, great, and I hope to see you at the hall soon.
You absolutely will, and that will do it for this episode. Again, I love my town. I love where I get to lay my head at night. I'm very lucky to call Easton home, and I hope that others, even if you're in the area and you don't live in Easton, take a drive down here, check it out, park your car on Main Street, walk around, go to the Farmer's Daughter, get something to eat, check out some of the local shops and places to go. It is a great welcoming place with, as we shared with you, a whole bunch of history. And as always, follows, shares, likes. I'm doing my best with social media. I'm going to keep putting stuff out there. Working on a couple of exciting things. You can still buy t-shirts on the website. And anybody that does a rating and review of this podcast on the Apple podcast or on any platform, I do have a tool that will let me know on other platforms. But if you do a rating and review and publish it on a podcast platform, send me an email, josh@beawesome. That's JOSH@BEAUSM as in Mary.com. And I will get a t-shirt in the mail to you. Just send me your size and address. Because those ratings, reviews really do make a difference in how people see us. And that's a big deal. So you deserve something for your time. So in the meantime, if you can be anything, be awesome.